One of the things that I've always been naturally good at is planning, is looking ahead, putting a plan together, and then actually following through and getting things done. And this really worked well for me when I worked in the corporate world, where I had a boss who was giving me my goals. I would take these goals, break them down into smaller goals, and put a plan together to achieve these goals, and then actually get down to work. And I rarely ever missed a deadline. Now, things changed when I decided to go out on my own and work from home. And what I started noticing is something you maybe notice in your life too, where I'm so busy all day long, but then at the end of the day, I hardly have anything to show for it. And I started wondering, why is this happening? I'm usually a very good planner. And what I realized is that now that I no longer have a boss, now that I no longer have a company that's giving me my deadline, I didn't feel as motivated or as committed to achieve my own goals, to achieve my own plans and follow my own deadlines. So I knew something had to change. So through a lot of research and working on my own, I created a system. And I use this word system very, very lightly because it's so simple that it feels silly to call it a system. And over the past few months, I've been sharing more and more about that on Instagram. And many of my followers have asked me to share this secret system that I use. And for a long time, I resisted that because of how simple it is. But today, I decided that I'm going to share with you a step-by-step process to help you plan your days, plan your weeks, to actually get things done. The system that I'm using is practical, is simple, is so doable, and very far from complicated. If this sounds like something that you want, then definitely continue watching. Hi, I'm Muna. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to have you here. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to help this channel grow. Now, the reason that the system that I'm talking to you about today is so not complicated is because I believe that the more complicated things are for us, the more complicated systems we try to follow, the less likely we are to stick with it, to be consistent. So yes, we might get super excited when we hear about this new way of doing things, and you need the Excel sheet, and you need 3 apps, and you need a million things to put the plan together. These sound exciting. I've fallen for these cool hacks and ideas and systems in the past. But I realized quickly that I would get excited about it for a day or two, or maybe stick with it for a week, but then I would fall off track once again. That's why I believe that the simpler these systems are, the more likely you are to stick with it and to actually keep doing it over and over again, and not just a week or two or a month or two. Now, before I share with you the 6 steps that we're going to take in order to plan ahead and actually get things done, we have to have a tool that we can use to take all of our thoughts from our head onto something. And the complicated and the fancy tool that I use is this right here, paper and pen. Very, very simple. I know that some people prefer to use their laptops or their phones or complicated systems that we talked about, but honestly, there's just nothing like paper and pen. Maybe it might sound old school, but we know from research that writing things down with your own hands, with a pen on paper, makes it much more likely for you to actually achieve these things, whether it's writing down your goals or your plans or your affirmations or whatever it is. So my system works on paper and pen, and I invite you to use the same thing. Now on to the 6-step process. Step number 1 is to plan to plan. And what I mean here is don't leave it up to chance when you're going to do your planning for the week. There has to be a specific time that you choose every single week to plan ahead. The time that I choose is the last day of the weekend, and in the Middle East it's Saturday because we start work on Sunday. So every Saturday afternoon I know that I have 1 hour. I mean, it doesn't have to take an hour. It can be 30 minutes, but maybe the first time it will take you an hour, and it's so worth your time. Once you get into the groove of it and you get used to this system, you might need less and less time. But it's so important that you decide when and where you're going to create the plan. Don't leave it up to chance. So the first step is just as simple as that. Plan to plan. Step number 2 is what we call brain dump. I don't know if you've heard of this before, but it's simply opening a whole new sheet of white paper and writing down everything on your mind, all the things that you want to do in no particular order. Maybe you have a deadline for a project that you have to deliver, so you write that down. Maybe you have your mom's birthday and you want to go buy her a present, write that down. You need to go grocery shopping this week, write that down. You need to cook 3 meals. You'd like to work out 4 times. Whatever it is, write down everything that crosses your mind. Don't stop. Keep going and keep going and keep going. This might take a long time. It depends on how many things you would like to get done. Now, don't worry, we're not gonna actually do all of the things on this list. For now, it's simply getting things out of our head onto paper so we feel less overwhelmed with the amount of things that we think we need to do. Now, what I've experienced is sometimes I feel, oh my God, I have so much to do. I don't even know where to start. So I decide to write down my list. And then I realize that the list isn't that long after all. And most of the things won't actually take that much time. Our brain has this way of overcomplicating things and exaggerating how big the tasks are. Writing things down will really simplify it for you. So step number 2 is the brain dump. And I like to call this a running list, meaning this list is alive. It's not just something that I write down and I forget about. It's a list that I continue adding to because life happens. Something might happen with your kid. An invitation might come that you didn't know was coming. Something might happen with work. Whatever happens, you need to have a place where you can dump. That's why it's called brain dump. Dump all of these things so that then you can move on to the next few steps, which we'll be talking about in a second, where you can start the planning process. This running list is very helpful when the way that I like to explain it to my clients is that, you know, sometimes when you're in the middle of working on something, let's say you're writing an article and you're like really into it and you're excited and you're in the flow, and then an idea pops up, oh man, I have to call the, I don't know, dry cleaning place. I need to call that client. I need to follow up on that. And most of us, what we do is we stop what we're doing and we go to do that thing that suddenly popped up in our brain. But what we know for a fact is that once we switch gears, we lose concentration and we get out of the flow that we were in before. So instead of completely stopping what you're doing, go back to your master list, write that thing down. Write down, call dry cleaning. This way, you tell your brain, it's okay, relax brain, you don't have to remember this anymore. I will remember it for you on paper. Now go back to doing what you're doing. It's really important not to think that multitasking is a good thing or switching tasks is a good thing. It slows you down, it gets you out of flow, you just lose your concentration. So this running list is alive and kicking and always on the sheet of paper or in your notebook that you use for things like that. So that is number 2. Now moving on to step number 3. And in this step, we're gonna look at all of the things that we wrote down in our master list. Let's say you have 15 or 20 items there. We're gonna break them down into categories. The way that I like to do it is I have 4 categories. One I call my family, and this includes my husband, my daughter, immediate family, and my parents, my sisters, the close family. I don't mean extended family because I don't think it's important enough to have on my list, but it's up to you, the categories that you choose. So my family, my work, myself, and miscellaneous, things that pop up that really don't fit into any category. Again, the categories are completely up to you, but I found, because I've tried many different iterations of this, and I found those are the 4 categories that matter the most and that actually help me get things done. So in these 4 categories, I start plugging in the things from my running master list or my running brain dump list. For example, if I see that I need to create 3 videos for Instagram this week, then I'll put that under work. If I have to go buy a present for my daughter's friend's birthday, then I put that under family. If I want to have a date night with my husband, I'll put that under family. If I want to work out 3 or 4 times this week, that goes under myself. If I don't know, we need to do something with the garden and I'm not sure who to call, I put that in miscellaneous. You start putting all of the things in these different categories and seeing how much you actually have to get done. Now, what's really important here is to realize that not everything on your master list or your running list has to actually get done. Sometimes we think that things are important, but if you start looking at your categories and you see, oh my God, I have so much to do this week, it's unrealistic. The expectations are just, it's not going to happen. You know, as you're writing down this plan, that I'm just not going to do it. It sounds good, it looks good on paper, but I'm not actually going to get things done. And this completely defeats the purpose and the point. So as you start writing things down, and if you see that it's a lot, then start asking yourself, do I actually need to do this first this week? And second, at all? Do I actually need to do this at all? For example, if, again, going back to the example of my daughter's friend's birthday, if I need, or I think I need to go to the mall and find her a present, and that will take me an hour and a half between getting out of the house, parking at the mall, walking in the mall, coming back home, all of these things is going to take about 90 minutes of my precious time. Then maybe when I start looking at my list and thinking, no, that's just way too much, maybe then I can spend 10 minutes online and buy something that will be delivered to my house. So how can things be simplified? This is if I really insist on buying that present, but maybe there are things on that list that really aren't that important. Maybe it's an invitation. I want to invite some people over for dinner just because they invited us 3 months ago and they're not really good friends, but we feel like we owe it. I start asking myself, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to give them a night? Because the night of me inviting them over will take hours of my day because I need to cook and prepare and buy things and all of these things. So sometimes it's just scratching this whole thing out. I don't actually need to do this. So in these categories, you start seeing what needs to be done. My work, my family, myself, and miscellaneous. Makes sense so far? So we have the 4 categories, or however many you would like to have. I suggest don't have more than 3 or 4 for sure. On the same sheet of paper, I have my days of the week. And I usually plan in 5 days. So I plan my work week because I like weekends to be easy and, you know, more spontaneous than the rest of the week. So for those 5 days, I start plugging in, taking out. So I need to take my daughter to gymnastics. I know this is on Mondays and Wednesdays. I'll put that in. I want to work out 3 times. I'll plug that into my paper so far. We're still doing everything on paper now. So I start plugging things in. I want to work out Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And then for work, when am I going to create these videos? When am I going to write this blog post? When am I going to shoot this video? Like I'm shooting this one right here. This was planned. It's not something that I thought, oh, you know what? I feel like doing a video today. No, maybe I don't even feel like it. Well, today, coincidentally, I really feel like it because I'm very passionate about this topic and helping you with this. But there are days that I wake up and I don't feel like doing or shooting a video. But then what do? I look at my plan and I get down to business because yes, I don't have a boss, but I have a boss. I have me. And I have my own word and I have my own deadline. So I start putting in all of the tasks and all of the small projects. Well, actually, one important point here. We're not writing down projects at this point. We're writing down tasks, things that you want to get done, which is coming from bigger projects, but we broke them down into what actually needs to get done. So now we have it on paper. Now on to step number 4. And in this step, we take the bottom part of our beautiful page, the calendar part, and we start plugging these tasks into an actual calendar. So this could be Outlook, which is what I use just because I'm on email a lot during the day when I'm working, but you could use Google Calendars, you could use your phone calendar, whatever works for you. The reason that I like to do that and the reason I believe this is an important step is because sometimes I'm over-optimistic. And as I was taking things out from categories and putting them in, sometimes I might notice that my Tuesday is packed. I have 4 things to do for work. I need to work out and I have to go do this thing and do this thing in the afternoon and pick up my daughter from school, and I'm overextending myself, and Tuesday just feels like a heavy day that I don't feel like actually doing anything with it. So instead, I start playing around with it, because you're the boss, you're the driver here. So you can choose to make your week heavy and frustrating and overwhelming, or you can choose to make it lighter. And it doesn't mean that you drop important tasks. It just means that you play around with them. So if you're invited to dinner on a Monday night and you know that it's going to be a late night, don't plan something huge on Tuesday morning. But you won't know that unless you have it in front of you. Don't depend on your brain to remember all of these things or to plan just in your brain. Put it in front of you and distribute things throughout your week in a way that makes you excited to start the week, that makes you feel like, yes, this week is going to be a productive one. I'm really going to get things done, because it doesn't feel overwhelming. It doesn't feel like choking, like I can't get things done. So in this step, we just move them from the paper onto our beautiful calendar, whatever calendar you decide to choose. Step number 5 is a really important one, and it's to review what you're doing tomorrow every night of the week. This takes 2 minutes, 5 minutes max, and it is a game changer. Why? Because if you planned your week ahead on the last day of the weekend, by the 3rd or 4th day of the week, you might have forgotten what you planned. And the worst thing that could happen, at least to me, is to wake up on a Wednesday morning and be surprised with what I have to do. I hate surprises. I love surprises. Sammy, my husband, surprises like presents and flowers, those I love. But surprises when it comes down to work is not something that's going to help me be more productive or more efficient with the things that I need to do. It's really helpful to look at what you have tomorrow the night before, so that you are mentally and emotionally and physically prepared for it. So for example, if I look at my plan and I see that tomorrow morning I have a workout, then I get my workout clothes ready from tonight. If I know that tomorrow I have to shoot a video, then at least I start thinking about what I'm going to wear for that video. And I know that that day I need to put on some makeup, which on other days I might not need to. It just helps me know how I'm going to start my day, because I know what's happening throughout this day. This step is so important, and I hope that you don't miss it. Now on to the last step, step number 6. And it is to review the week that passed as you're planning the week ahead. So let's say you've done this, you followed this process, you followed the system, and you made your plan for last week. This week, in your planning session, going back to step number 1, where you plan to plan, in this session, when you're sitting down to plan, start it with looking at what was done the week before. Were there tasks that didn't happen? Were there things that you did that were not in the plan, that were extra? Write those down just so you have an idea, and you start building that knowledge of how much time things actually take. So if you've planned to write an article and you gave it 2 hours, but you actually finished it in half an hour, or you thought it was going to take half an hour and it took 2 or 3 hours, now you can plan better for next week. That's number 1. Number 2 is you'll start noticing as the weeks go by that there are tasks that keep moving from this week to next week, to the next week, to the next week. And this is an invitation for you to either eliminate this altogether, like we said earlier, scratch it. This is not important enough if I keep moving it. Or you start taking this task very seriously and you set it as the first thing you need to do this week. It just helps you see what you've achieved and gives you an idea of how to plan for the following week. So the last step of this process, review the week before, and then go back to the first step and plan to the week ahead. I'd like to end with a few thoughts and a few mindset shifts that might be really helpful for you as you become the amazing planner that you're about to become. But first, let's just review all 6 steps. We said step number 1 is to plan to plan. Don't forget that. That's so important. Don't leave it up to chance. Remember, you have to plan to plan. Otherwise, 1 week you will, and then 3 weeks you won't. I promise you, you have to plan it in order to get it done. Number 2 is to write down your brain dump, your running master list of all the things that you want to achieve. Step number 3 is to put them into categories, whatever categories you choose. It could be 4, it could be 3, whatever is important to you in your life right now, in the season of life that you're in, and then putting those the things that you came up with in the categories into a schedule on the same sheet of paper. Step number 4 is to move all of these things from paper to an actual calendar. Like I said, I use Outlook, but you can use whichever calendar that you want. And this would be a chance for you to play with things, play around with the calendar to make your week something that you look forward to starting rather than dreading starting. And then step number 5 is to review your plan every night of the week for the following day so that you're emotionally, mentally, and physically prepared for it. And then step number 6 is to review the week and to look at what you accomplished and what you didn't so that you can celebrate the things that you did and then question the things that you didn't, eliminate, do whatever you need to do here, and then go back to step number 1 and plan ahead. I wasn't lying when I said it was a simple system, right? I'd love to hear from you. Does that make sense? Does that sound simple, or am I oversimplifying it? How does this work for you? And I want to know, if you actually try to do this, let me know how it goes. And better yet, take a picture of your list, of your paper, of your weekly planner on your notebook and tag me on Instagram. I'd love to see how this is working for you, because it's, as I mentioned from the beginning, it's such a simple system that I was so resistant to sharing it because I felt it was just too simple. But maybe it's simplicity that makes it so powerful, and the reason why I've stuck with it for years now, and it's helped me become a much more productive person. I procrastinate much less. And if you haven't caught my video on procrastination, then you can catch it here. Make sure you watch that after this one. But before we end this video, there are just a few thoughts that I thought are really important to add here. One is that you need to be the kind of person who protects her time, who protects her schedule. Nobody's going to care about your time more than you do. And you train people on how to respect you and your time by the way you respect yourself and your own time. So I'll give you a simple example. This week, somebody wanted to have a meeting with me to discuss something super simple. We've met before face to face. I drove to their office. I spent an hour and a half talking to them between driving and getting there and coming back home and all of these things, and it was lovely meeting them. And then we said we're going to do something together in the future, so let's discuss it. So when they called me to set up another meeting, they said, okay, so we'll see you at our office on X day at X time. And I was like, why at the office? Can we do it on Zoom? And the first reaction is like, no, it would be much better face to face. And I said, but with traffic and I have other things to do and I have other things happening that day, I would much prefer if we please do it on Zoom. I insisted to go on Zoom because something that would take us 20 minutes on Zoom might take me 40 minutes or 45 or an hour to do in person. Because first there's all the niceties and where's the coffee and where's the tea and the parking and the elevator and all of these things. It takes time away, and our time is precious and limited. And if you don't train people to respect your time, they won't respect it on their own. It's just the way it is. Second important point, and I talked about that in another video where I shared the 3 habits that every person, I think, will be happier and more productive by following those habits. And it's to include white space into your calendar. And what I mean by white space is don't make your calendar so, chock-a-block, as they call it. One meeting to one thing, to one thing, to one thing. Make sure there's time for you in there. Make sure there's time to just be, to just think without rushing, whether it's driving or being in meetings or working on things, to just sit and be. And I don't mean for this time to be at night, late at night or super early in the morning. I mean, even during the day, make sure you have a bit of white space between all the different tasks that you're doing, so that once again, your week doesn't feel heavy and it feels much lighter and much more approachable. For the third and final point here, it's as you start writing down your plans and actually following through on those plans, and again, it's never going to be 100%. We're human, life happens, surprises pop up, things happen. But if you can follow through on 70 or 80% of your plans, week in, week out, you know what you're doing? You're building more and more self-trust. And the more you trust yourself to actually do the things you said you're going to do, the more likely you are to create bigger goals and bigger plans and achieve bigger dreams and bigger things in your life. So as you start saying what you're going to do and then doing what you said you're going to do, you're building this beautiful muscle of self-trust, and this will help you achieve more in your life, in your business, in your relationship, and in all areas of your life. Now, because I'm so passionate about protecting my time and helping you protect yours and seeing it as precious and to help you have that white space that we've talked about, I've created a free masterclass for you that shares with you 5 simple ways that you can literally save hours every single week. They're simple things. I hope now you trust when I say things are going to be simple. There are 5 things that if you start applying just 1 or 2 of these things, honestly, you'll find that you have a lot more free time on your hands to do more important things in your life. I hope you enjoy that. You can get it through the link underneath this video. As soon as you click there, you'll receive the masterclass directly to your inbox. Again, don't forget to tag me if you actually follow this process. I hope you do. And let me know how it goes for you. Email me, tag me, comment on this video. Let's have a conversation. Thank you very much for giving me your time, your most precious resource, and spending the last, I don't know how long this video is. I think it's longer than my other videos, probably after I do the editing. But thank you for your time. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.